I will take additional only 30 seconds to offer my pranams to my spiritual teachers and my direct and indirect spiritual teachers. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Okay, I have to say that those of you who are translating, if you are falling behind, if I'm speaking too fast, just let me know, and or if you missed anything, I'll be very happy to retrace a couple of steps. I have to admit a great difficulty, a big challenge to speak at these kind of gatherings because of the varieties of interests and varieties of level of familiarity with Krishna consciousness. And I also didn't want to merely repeat something which is probably often repeated, and that's like some basic tenets of the Vaishnava theology or the Hare Krishna concepts. But rather, what I thought might work well is to take a topic and then look at this topic, which I think should be of interest to, I hope it's of interest to all of us, and then look at that topic briefly, in, let's say, half an hour, from different points of view, including the Hare Krishna point of view. Now, better late than never. Welcome. I was never particularly religious person, and religion, any specific religious tradition, never managed to get much of my attention. And when I encountered the Hare Krishna followers or Hare Krishna practitioners, I didn't think they were awfully too religious. I mean, I was very young and I was not, my academic abilities or my intellectual abilities weren't too great. I just saw a bunch of people who had a really good time, and he had these amazing universal values, which I thought, that's pretty good. I thought it was so good that eventually I joined them. However, if we were to technically be precise, Hare Krishna or Vaishnava tradition is a religious tradition. Despite all of its universality, it is a religion. And so we as religious people we react to statements that denigrate religion as a phenomenon. Now, when we look at religion, we can look at religion as one specific phenomenon, in a case of a very specific tradition, or just a general phenomenon. And when people say things such as religion creates wars, do people say this in Germany? Religion creates wars. For a while, you could hear this very often in the States, United States of America. And then they would mention 9/11 and even God knows what happened there. But anyhow, then Northern Ireland, ISIS, suicide bombers, Catholic Inquisition, and so on. And So yeah, there has been religious tension throughout history, and there have also been religious wars. Um, and when John Lennon sang that song, "Imagine," what's the song? Is it "Imagine"? I think.
Give peace a chance?
No. Imagine, imagine. Yeah. Uh, Imagine there is no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Anyhow, I won't read the whole. Has anyone of you heard this song? It's like, wow, not so much in German, not a few. Or maybe it's gotten really old by now. But often people, when they would criticize religion, they would remember this song. Anyhow, in this song, Lennon also imagine there is no heaven, there is no hell, there is no religion also. We just get along. Like, let's just be nice. Let's just enjoy life. And then what happened to him? He was shot dead. I mean, it's a nice sentiment. You know, what to say about it? You know, didn't want anyone any harm. But you cannot be naive about this world. This world is a very complex place. Dostoevsky wrote Idiot. Idiot was a person who had all good intentions, purest of hearts, but messed it all up. Do you study Idiot in high school? No. Okay. In Russia? You have, okay. Anyhow, it's one of the world classics, Dostoevsky's Idiot. Anyhow. So Lenin also he had good intentions, let's say. But at the end, like there's this, what's the line? You may say that I'm a dreamer. How does that go? Hang on. How does it go?
But I'm not the only one.
But I'm not the only one. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. And then, I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. I agree, let's do it. But people are a difficult bunch. You put people together and all kinds of funny things start to happen after a while. Like himself, like amazing idea, right? But then someone murdered him. Someone ended up actually really liking his song. Well, that tells us something about the nature of people in this world. I don't know if anyone of you has ever tried to be like a saint. I'm going to be a saint. I won't do anything bad to anyone. I won't bad-mouth anyone. I won't criticize. I won't harm anyone. And then just, in a matter of hours, you find yourself blaspheming someone. It's not easy to be a saint. If you don't believe me, try. Yeah, this tells us something about us who are living in this world. Interesting thing. I mean, in one point, I looked it up. Of course, nowadays, if you want to learn something, you just go to the Academy of Internet. You punch in whatever question you have, and you get all the relevant answers. I looked it up, like the causes of religion. I mean, there's even a book. Hang on. Encyclopedia of Wars. Like, this is a book that documents all of the wars known to modern people. And only the smallest fraction of these wars have been caused by religion? Have. Only the smallest amount. Like some small percentage, some like 3% or some 2-3%. So this statement that religion causes wars is not awfully too accurate. Like even from the historic perspective. Now, if we were to listen to John Lennon and try to get rid of religion, like let's rid the world of religion. One thing you would do, and this is really interesting. You know, Nietzsche was a, who knows Nietzsche, right? You at least heard of Nietzsche, yeah. Nietzsche was an atheist, and Nietzsche, as an atheist, thought that people of his time who were trying to get rid of the religion were doing a bad thing. And he wrote that famous, God is dead, we killed him. And then he proceeds to criticize us who have killed God. Like, where was our brain? Like, an atheist thinks like that. Why? Because if you kill religion, there's nothing sacred in this world. There's only a pile of matter. There is nothing sacred. This is exactly what Nietzsche also said. Interesting, an atheist. There's nothing sacred left. So how, if there's no religion, how do you gauge what's valuable, what isn't? You gauge by feeling, this is valuable to me. But the other person says, no, that's not valuable to me. To me, something else. So then, what is valuable? Like if we are the judges of what's valuable, then we have nothing to say to someone who's a murderer. To murder, to me, is valuable, let's say, a crook says. So humans cannot be the judges of what's valuable. There's got to be something above us, so that we have something which is objectively, truly valuable. And then, do you celebrate Earth Day in Germany? Earth Day, when they promote awareness of green issues and planting trees and stuff. Yeah. In the States, every city has a huge festival, like huge. And the statements are always the same from all of these ecologically conscious people. Like, hello, don't destroy environment, because by destroying environment, you destroy our own very selves. So in other words, these people don't value the environment for the value of its own, but they're actually selfish. Had the destroying of the environment not caused harm to ourselves, let's destroy it. Let's roast all the pigs. Let's slaughter all the chickens. Let's pollute all the rivers. As long as it's not hurting us. That's a really bad message. That's a very selfish message. But what religion does, religion gives sacredness. Religion tells you, and I'm speaking of religion in general, and this is definitely applicable to Vaishnavism or the Hare Krishna tradition. That there is God, a source of everything. And as a source of everything, God is sacred. And everything that comes out of the sacred is also sacred. And with this worldview, you can go around and actually value. Like, the flower is not just a flower. It's a manifestation of God's energy. Sun, there's some value to it. It's not just, oh, it heats me. Like, you're aware of the divinity of God. And so when you remove religion, people cannot perceive anything, they cannot perceive morality outside of themselves. Like, I'm the judge of what is moral and what is immoral. And then I'll give you an example of how does this person function psychologically. Like, I met a person, I was selling Prabhupada's books in the streets of San Diego, California. And I met a person, and I took some books, and really nice person, pleasant. And we talked a bit, and then I said how eating meat is unnecessary and therefore evil. And he said, no, it's not evil. Why not? I mean, you're harming and unnecessarily harming another living entity. And he says, but I like it. I'm like, dude, I mean, who cares what you like? It's bad. But I like it. And I was really, are you like really so confused? Like, what's wrong with you? And I said, what if I like to, slap you on the face? Would that also be okay? Oh, that I don't like. So, this is what happens when people perceive morality only within themselves. Like, their moral compass is broken. Basically what they're saying, I'm God. I decide what's good, what's evil. This is scary. Yes.
We could say that in the modern world, the law is some kind of influence of what is good and bad.
Yes, secular laws are trying to mimic what we would call God's laws or natural laws. What is just, what isn't just, and so on. They're trying to do that. How successfully, that's up for discussion. And people are typically discussing this. I'll give you one example from a Christian tradition of a religious person. In America, there's this one famous author, doesn't matter. He wrote a book and then he became very popular, and then he wrote a bunch more books and became even more popular. But the interesting thing is that he had a clashing with his father since late teenage. And him and his father were just at odds. You know what it means to be at odds? Like they don't click. They don't fit. They just like... and he felt that his father never understood him. And his father was a very conservative person who grew up in a conservative part of the country and so on. And when this person, this now famous author, left this small town to pursue his passions and whatnot, his father was very critical of him. And so he always felt like, my father never supported me. My father doesn't love me. And then this bothered him so much that he went to talk to his priest. Like, please tell me, what should I do here? And his priest told him, well, you have no choice. You are a Christian. You have to love your father. Says you have no option. If you're a religious person, truly, you have no option. You have to love. And this is very important because truly religious person, like in the Hare Krishna movement, we have this concept, we're convinced that the living being is not the physical product, that the matter that we have is just our body that we use, a machine, and that we're actually spiritual beings, a soul. Every one of us is a soul. And soul is good, but it can get a little sick. And so when you see a sick person, that's a person who needs help. So the attitude is, if you're going to hate, don't hate the sinner, hate the sin. And so in this way, truly religious person has no option. If you're a religious person, you have no option. You cannot hate. You have to love. If you're truly God conscious. Mama evamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, like every being is my part of me. And every soul is beautiful. But maybe misguided for a time being. And as a part and parcel of God is worth our respect and even our love, which is also, and I will come to that, I'll quote such instances also. Now the question still remains, okay, even though religion causes almost no wars, but it does cause some, why? Why the religious tension? And at least in the Vaishnava tradition, there's a very interesting concept that when people contact religion, according to the quality of their consciousness, they have a different experience. And then with that experience, they form traditions. And then even traditions within traditions. And so there's this concept that certain religions are good, certain religious concepts are good, and certain are not so good. And they correspond to what we call the three modes of material nature. That's the goodness, passion, and ignorance. I'm sorry, I don't have time to explain this in detail, but it's... Read Bhagavad Gita, this is my promo. Truly awesome concept of the three modes of material nature. Oh my goodness, you learned so much. Really empowers you, this knowledge of the three modes of material nature. And so religion can manifest in this way. And in the Bhagavad Gita is a very small book. So there's a lot discussed in it. And this is also discussed in it, and like everything else, in relative brevity. Short form. So religion in tamas, or the religion in darkness, tends to worship ghosts and goblins and spooky creatures. And then you have religion in a rajas, which is the disturbed mode, or I don't know how to translate it into English. Passion, it's described as passion, but also passion indicates great interest in something. So, but yeah, passion is typically translated as rajas as passion. And in rajas, a person worships powerful beings to gain powers. And then in the mode of goodness, the sattva, a person worships gods, multiple gods. And only in the transcendental mode, which is a truly spiritual mode, person worships, has a natural tendency to worship the source of everything, God. Just take Vedic or Hindu tradition. You'll find all of these within the same tradition, according to the quality of consciousness of people who approach religion. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that majority of Vedic religious texts present religion within the modes of material nature. It says, Arjuna, reject that. Have interest only in the transcendental, really spiritual religion. I mean, I don't know what's it like in Germany, but in America, people often say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And there are many reasons why someone would say that. But it is interesting that people in their minds separate the two, as if religion is different from spirituality. And often it is. Because only transcendental religion is actually spiritual. And the religion that is not transcendental does cause friction, clash of interests, and so on. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes knowledge according to these three modes. We all know something. We're all convinced about something. And that conviction in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls knowledge. I am convinced that people from that religion next door need to burn in hell. There are people who think like that. And that is interesting. Krishna calls that knowledge. But what kind of knowledge? Krishna says that when the knowledge is in the mode of goodness, then the person perceives equality as fundamental. Do you know this? 18th chapter, I think. So when the person is influenced by the mode of goodness, the knowledge of that person tells this person that equality is fundamental and all of our differences are merely peripheral. Man, woman, tall, gray hair, red hair, no hair also. Hair here. Wherever you turn, there are differences. There are physical differences, intellectual differences, musical differences, religious differences. There's all kinds of differences. But a person whose knowledge is in the mode of goodness, that's a person who walks around and is predominantly conscious of our equality. And that equality is fundamental to us. This is a spiritual concept. That we're all brothers and sisters in spirit. What about the knowledge in the mode of passion? That's a knowledge that tells you exactly the opposite. That's a knowledge that tells you that differences are fundamental. Aha, you are a woman. Aha, you are a man. Let's fight. Interesting enough, like in the mode of passion, person thinks that differences are fundamental. Oh, your rituals are different. You're different, man. And that person is predominantly conscious of differences. And this creeps up in religion too. And then there is friction. There's abuse and so on. And then there's knowledge in tamas or darkness. And that's a knowledge that's meager, small knowledge. And you don't want to know anything outside that small knowledge. But partial knowledge, as they say, is dangerous. We just become aware of something meager, small. And God forbid that you learn something new. And you find this also in religion. A person of one religious tradition tells a person of another religious tradition, well, how about this, that doesn't exist in my religion. Get lost. Or they ask you some question which you never thought about, and you say, oh, you're a demon, why are you asking such stupid questions? What if it's a good question? But in other words, by meager knowledge, a person becomes sectarian. I can't tell you how many times I was asked by Indian people to speak on the Bhagavad Gita so they could feel more Indian. This is sad. I'm trying to tell you how tricky this is. I'm trying to tell you who we are. Like, what's our conditioned nature? You have a book which is dedicated to transcendental knowledge, and you bring this beautiful transcendence down to national identity? Religious people do this. Close themselves into a group and then become fanatics. This is knowledge in the mode of darkness. There's a very interesting statement in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone of you has read a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, quite a few, most. What's that?
I heard 2-3 times you tell all Bhagavad Gita, but I am not reading.
Aha, not good, man. I'll talk to you afterwards. Srimad Bhagavatam is a spiritual encyclopedia. That's a book that you have, and you have it for generations. Like, that's something you leave to your great children. Like, such a wealth. There is an interesting concept of a materialistic spiritualist. I mean, what? Materialistic spiritualist. What kind of mentality is the mentality of a materialistic spiritualist?
Maybe who is looking gain from what spiritual activities we do?
Yeah, perhaps, but I'll say just because of the time. I just noticed that it's already 3:00 and I'm supposed to end by 3. So, and I'm almost done. So I'll just say it real quick. I apologize, but thank you for your participation.
You can go on until 3:30.
I got a bonus 30 minutes. Thank you. But I also don't like to go too long. Like, I think it's better to make certain points, and then we can discuss that maybe some minutes. Yeah. So the book. So Krishna himself describes a materialistic spiritualist as a person who worships God, but no one else. No one else. Very interesting statement. A true spiritualist, spiritual spiritualist, worships God and everyone else, adores, seeing everyone as a part and parcel of God. But the materialistic spiritualist worships only God. Neophyte, yeah. Neophyte or a beginner, yeah.
Is this something where you're referring to the verse that Krishna says, if someone is worshipping the idol but not...
Yes, archayam eva haraye pujitam yashradehate na tad bhakteshu cha anyeshu sa bhakta prakrita smritaha. That's the verse. You speak Hindi? Yeah, you probably understood this, yeah. Or you may even know the verse.
Not the verse, but
Yeah, okay.
I read some.
Yeah. It's simple Sanskritam, so if you speak Hindi, you understand it right away. And then elsewhere, the Bhagavatam says the best sadhana to obtain sadhya, where sadhya means goal and sadhana is the means by which you obtain goal. And the goal is self-realization. And what's the best sadhya to obtain self-realization? One is to always be conscious of the source of everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And then the second part is to lose all of the pride and bow down, like physically bow down to every creature. Lower the creature, the better. Because this is the best sadhana. So that the person doesn't ride on a high horse. You know this statement? Riding on a high horse means you're walking around all proud. This is how you can tell that the person is not spiritually advanced. When they're trying to dominate. At least in the Hare Krishna tradition, a servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of God's servant is truly a devotee. Is truly a spiritualist. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but those of you who have read at least this section of the Bhagavatam, when Daksha and Shiva had a skirmish, has anyone of you read this? Daksha and Shiva, a few? Okay, this was in the middle of a religious ceremony. A great person, Daksha, not a Joe Schmo. What would be German equivalent? Joe Schmo. What's a common German name? Peter. Not your ordinary Peter. Very Franz. Hans. Hans Müller. Not your Hans Müller. I'll tie that up in my notes if I ever give this lecture to another German audience. Very elevated person, but somehow or other, for God's sake, his ego was hurt because when he entered this huge arena, everyone stood up to offer him respect, this great person. Lord Shiva didn't stand up. And he just hated on Shiva. There's more to it. I'm oversimplifying it. There's more to it. But we got a lot of problems. That's what I'm trying to say. We have a lot of issues. Yes.
What is remedy?
Oh, okay. Good. Could you hold on to it? That's a very good question. Yes, yes.
Tradition I went. I'm also still in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's functioning type, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so difficult.
Yeah. Could you just hold on to it? I'm just, because I truly want to, I also want to honor your speaking, and also I think what you're bringing up is very important. So, but let me just finish this. I'm almost done. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Bhakti param, highest bhakti. That's the divine devotion for God. That's the highest achievement. That's the goal of life, Krishna says. That's the goal of life. But there is a prerequisite for it. There's a bunch of prerequisites, but this is one. One of the prerequisites is sama sarveshu bhuteshu. That the person is equal towards everyone. And when one has that attitude, then one's heart becomes a suitable ground for the manifestation of divine devotion. Or Srila Prabhupada put a devotional service. So I'll end there, and then the question was what to do, right? What's the remedy? So remedy is twofold, at least according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, twofold. One is one step is to do that which we have to do, and then the other step is for God to do what is God's part to do. So our part is to try to understand God, then try to understand the teachings, and then to try to be, how does it go? Prayata Atma in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Prayata Atma is a self-disciplined person. Actually, a disciplined person. And disciplined by two ways. Disciplined by self-discipline, and disciplined by Krishna's teachings, by God's teachings. This is a Prayata Atma. So this is something that we have to do. And then more we do of that, then Krishna says that He cleanses, God Himself cleanses our heart. And the person whose heart has been touched by God, it's a very beautiful person. I remember once we were, I won't say where we were, because I don't want to reveal too much, but we were in front of a religious building, and then in front of it there was a giant board, why you need to hate, and then there was a list of all spiritual traditions. We thought it was funny. We thought, like, there's no love here, it's just lots of hate. Whoever put that board together, wasn't touched much, but by divine experience. Is that okay? I mean, I just left it in principle. Like in Krishna consciousness, for example, we chant Hare Krishna. That's God's name, and it's a mantra composed of God's names, and in this way we associate with God directly. But we see that the process, that we don't get too much out of our association with God through association with God's names, unless we're a little bit self-disciplined and try not to hate, try not to hurt, try not to offend, try to be self-disciplined, try to see the world as the world really is. as the divine eyes tell us, like that. And then more we do this, then more more we spiritually advance, like that. And because God cleanses the heart. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Oh yes, please.
May I add to your
Yes.
and also seeing the role models when we are with saintly people.
When we have
with saintly people,
saintly,
because they have imbibed these great qualities, then we also hope that we can also in this path can also become less egoistic.
Yeah. Yes. Could you speak a bit louder? Otherwise, I can try to repeat it in the microphone. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, we have a mic here coming your
I
way.
can speak loud. I just was too much quiet. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. And my question is, in our practice, as you said, for cleaning ourselves, we are so complicated, and for cleaning ourselves, at least in Vaishnava or in Hare Krishna, we chant the holy name.
Louder, louder.
We chant the holy name.
Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
So,
Let him speak.
so and also it is taught to us that in our spiritual progress, when we chant or we associate with devotees or we read, we accumulate in our account our spiritual earnings, right? But at least my experience is that I don't see that accumulation happening. I mean, someday I feel very aesthetic, and then next day I'm down, and I'm maybe not able to get up in the morning, or I'm not able to chant all my round. So if it's really accumulating, why I don't feel this this aestheticness or this spiritual feeling growing inside me? Why I'm feeling one day high, one day down? So is it really? It is promised in the scriptures this is something constant and it will never fade away. But I see it fading in me. And going up and down.
What's up with this? I want my money back. That is because you're an offender to the holy name. I have to say that that religion really requires a lot from you. You know, really asks a lot, and it seems like a lot to us. But those who persevere, they break through, because after all, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when you get this, you will be so clear that nothing else is a match. Nowhere close. Like, it's such a valuable thing. Like, you cannot compare anything to it. And so you don't get it just like that. And there are things that we do that offend the process. Like, you know, if you're trying to light fire and then you pour water, very difficult to ignite fire like that. You know, it really takes a lot of courage to look at one's own heart. There's really a lot in our hearts. And you don't even know until you start to clean. And then some people even get overwhelmed, like, oh my goodness, the things that are in my heart. There's one super intense book. I'll tell you afterwards if you have courage to read it. So those who manage to get to the point of self-discipline, they're in the fast lane. And everyone else, they need to get to the civilized point. Religion, after all, is for civilized people. And uncivilized people are people who are incapable of self-discipline. That's the difference between a civilized person and an animal. I mean, the amount of self-discipline people exert when it comes to making money, conquering, dominating. If you were to use fraction of that self-discipline to self-discipline for spiritual purposes, and yes, but that's why we fluctuate. But also, we don't make a claim that if you chant Hare Krishna, you'll be always like on drugs, smiling and... no, you may also feel stressed out. You may feel under pressure. You may feel concern. But it will all be in Krishna consciousness. You'll be stressing out about Krishna consciousness. About your service, for example. I have a friend, a devotee friend, who became angry with Krishna. Something happened to him, which he didn't want for him to happen. But it happened to him. So he blamed on Krishna. Like, why did you allow this to happen to me? And he became angry with Krishna. And what was his solution? His solution was to chant Hare Krishna 64 rounds a day until he gets an answer. And then after a while he got an answer. And the answer was, you needed it. And then he became at peace and was in love with Krishna again. Hare Krishna. But he had to see him when he was mad. He was truly mad. But he couldn't go away from Krishna. Like, he's already devotee a lot. And his solution was to chant Hare Krishna a lot. And, to get an answer.
Who told him to chant 64 rounds?
What's that?
Who told him?
Oh, himself. He thought he would chant 60. He chanted even more than that. He went to Govardhan, and he was staying at Govardhan. All day he would just chant and do parikrama around Govardhan. And then the answer came, like, you needed it. Oh, Krishna. Are you okay with that? Okay. Okay, I saw this hand first, and then Prabhuji over here.
So everything that comes in front of us, what we don't like, is a lesson from Krishna.
Whether it is a lesson from Krishna or not, in all honesty, I cannot tell. If I'm to be truly honest. Right? Many devotees will tell you, oh, this is from Krishna, Krishna wanted you, but we don't know. we're just guessing, you know. But one thing is for sure, whatever happens is good to learn from. Whatever happens, try to learn something. Are you good? Okay, and then we had one hand here and then back there, yes.
We worship many different forms of the Lord, like Shinadev, Jagannath, Vishnu. Is it important to focus on a specific form? I believe to remember that Prabhupada wrote once that we should focus on the two-armed form of Krishna.
Okay, it is and it is not. It is not important in the sense that God is God. And it is important because there's a particular tradition that builds around each form of God. And so in Vaishnava tradition, people worship Vishnu. But within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we go further to the origin of the origin, which is Krishna. And so Prabhupada did make both kinds of statements. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada said that devotion is for Krishna, the two-armed Krishna. Speaking of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But then you have examples like of I won't complicate it too much for the larger audience, but those are some basic reasons if you're okay with that.
Yeah, but is it important to focus on a specific form?
Is it important to...
Is it important, or how important is it to focus on a specific form of the Supreme Lord?
For the practical reasons, yes. For the practical reasons. That's why I said that around each deity there's a specific tradition. And I don't know if you can understand the value and the importance of a tradition, because tradition is something which is really broad. And culture forms around tradition. And culture is all-encompassing. Culture nurtures you, it nourishes you, and gives you company and association and goals and values, and gives you the glasses through which to see the world. Very specifically, very concretely, like that. And even though the reality is very complex, even spiritual reality is very complex and in many ways abstract rather than concrete, most people in their beginning stages just get lost in it all. So it is very important that, like Prabhupada's very clear, like, okay, we honor any religious tradition, but we teach only this. Like when it comes to very specific, and this is devotion to Krishna, one deity. Yes, I think it's your turn.
My question was about the one that you asked. You told the incident about your friend that he made a mistake, he was angry at God. But sometimes in the life it happens that you try very hard about few things and the result is always frustrating. And you mentioned that learning never stops. Experience teaches you something. But what happens when you're only learning and there's no improvement in that correcting?
Then it's time to change the category. It might be that you're just looping within the same category. Might be time to do some major concept shifting. That'd be my guess.
And where exactly one should focus, where this concept teaching should come from? Should we start reading Bhagavad Gita and try to change our behavior pattern?
Well, let's put it this way. If you seek, you will find. In Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, Hare Krishna tradition, we say that if you honestly seek, then God within the heart, who's present in your heart, will guide you. And so, very important thing is to be a Satyakama, the lover of truth. Like truth and nothing else. And if you truly ask like that, you will be guided. Then whatever tradition you come to, you can go deep. Of course, within the Hare Krishna tradition, we have great realizations about our own literature and tradition, and we wholeheartedly recommend it. Like, I was a teenager and I was seeking and I had billions of questions, and I was pestering my parents and the local priest and this, that, the other thing. But once I read the Bhagavad Gita, for me that was a synthesizing experience. Like it, synthesis means to put it all together. Like up until that point, I had a lot of elements of the picture that I couldn't fit into the picture. But by reading Bhagavad Gita, it put it all in perspective. I was like, wow. So that I can warmly recommend Bhagavad Gita. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for your very wise words, especially this topic of war is on top since I'm Ukrainian, and you've been telling about that religion caused wars, but now we are facing that war cause and has its influence to our society. And what would be your opinion, your hints, maybe a piece of advice? How would we Vaishnavas should act and behave to keep our faith? Because it's like you love your family members, but when you see they are fighting, you feel very stressed and concerned and baffled, and it causes weakness or maybe some doubts in general in faith in Vaishnavas, Gurus and Krishna in general. So what would be your advice for those Vaishnavas to keep their faith?
Well, one... Did you get it? Yeah, okay.
Can you summarize this?
Oh, yes. So, her question is... well, first she described the situation. You're from Ukraine, yeah. And there you have a clash of two, I don't know if we can call them countries, but some forces are there clashing. One force is called Russia, the other one Ukraine. What precisely that means, that's how. I was a soldier in a similar war. I was a soldier, for God's sake. It's like, how did that happen? It's a bizarre experience, to say the least. And she said that conflict also brought some conflict between devotees. Devotees within the same tradition, Hare Krishna tradition. And what was there a specific question, or what was the specific question?
Yeah, the specific question is, what is your opinion? How should Vaishnava act and behave in this situation to keep their faith and not
keep the faith and not because it could. You also said it could be discouraging to see other Vaishnavas,
especially older ones.
Even older ones, Well, I don't mean to discourage anyone by saying this, but even among religious people, very few are actually advanced. Very few. Most people just become satisfied with a certain comfort they find within religion. Like, I have someone to belong, I have identified with someone, I have a story that sort of puts things in perspective for me. And I don't even care whether it's a true story. It's a story about God and Brahma and Shiva, and I don't care if it's true. It just gives me some comfort. And so lots of people come to religion just to find some comfort. And then when they get that comfort, that's where they stay. You'd be surprised how many are like that. And some of them might have been devotees, some kind of devotees, for a very long time. To me, that's just a proof that Krishna consciousness, it is a spiritual process. Because if you don't practice it, no amount of mundane action can compensate for genuine spiritual advancement. I remember the days when Harikesh left. I don't know if you were around. It was like mid-90s or something like that. I can't remember, or late 90s. He was a big leader. And so he decided to, for whatever, some complex reasons, more or less, he decided to separate, like go his own way, and like that. And then it was crisis for quite a few people. I didn't, that's his choice. I'm not here because of him. I came here because I made these decisions. I'm not here because you are here. Like, you're here, you have your own reasons. I came here because I was seeking truth. And so even among religious people, only some are really advanced spiritually. And then this world, believe it or not, is a classroom. And in the classroom of a school, we learn, we're given lessons, and we're given exams. And the exams can be very tricky, very tricky. Who would ever expect something like that, right? Like, what kind of a test is this? But ultimately, that's what it is. I mean, this world is a school. And if we haven't learned the lessons, we won't pass the exam. We'll have to take the lessons again. It's somewhat a sad thing, but it's real. We should see that as an encouragement to do better. You okay with that? Okay, we're out of time. We're not, but for this session. Okay, thank you for your attention. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Ananda Maharaj ki Jai.